Hello, I wanted to do a quick video on editing the composite material files for Flight Simulator 2020. Now, one of the planes that we have is the King Air, and there's a couple of issues with the composite material file that we can clean up when we're adding in our own liveries into the game. So let's take a look at the problems that we want to fix. If I zoom into the tail region, you'll notice that in the glossy area of the paint in the black, we have this letter B that's showing up. This is the Beechcraft B. And this is actually an issue with the reflectivity or the roughness portion of the composite material file. So I'm seeing this show up in a lot of different liveries because it's just baked into the original composite and people aren't going through those files and editing them in order to remove this artifact from their own liveries. Now, if we switch over to another livery that has a lighter paint job, you'll notice that this one still has that issue. And you can sort of see it here in the light a little bit there. If we move over to the shaded side, though, you can see it a little bit better, that the reflection is just a little bit different, and we're still seeing that B show up in the paint. Now, there's actually another problem here on the tail. And if we take a look up at the rudder and move over to the left a little bit, you'll see that there's this kind of permanent shadow area that's showing up on the backside of the rudder. So we can actually fix both of these problems by editing the composite material, and we could do that inside of Photoshop. So in Photoshop, I currently have the current composite material file opened up here on the screen. And the composite files are actually three different files kind of smashed together. And so you can't really focus on the color that you're seeing on the screen right now in order to understand what's going on. We need to actually take a look at the individual color channels. So we have red, green, and blue. And if you're not seeing the channels panel here inside of Photoshop, you can go up to the window menu and turn it on right there. So let's focus on these channels one by one and describe what each one of these does. The red channel describes occlusion. And this is just a way of saying that these are kind of permanent shadows that are baked into the final render of the model. Now, in order to be able to see kind of what's going on in this file, I've also added in two more layers. One is a model, the UV map that came out of Blender. So this just describes all of the different polygons that make up the final model of the plane. And then from that, I made a mask in order to just kind of mask off the areas that are not part of the plane. So we can see kind of the different components a little bit easier. So this right here is the main portion of the rudder, or this is the main portion of the tail, I mean. This is the rudder, and then we have the kind of tail plane components up here, and this big piece right there. So if we take a look at just the red channel, these are the shadows that are baked into the plane. And you can see that there's some sort of permanent shadows kind of around this little bit that sticks out of the tail right there and around the little hinge pieces on the rudder. And if we take a look at right up here, we'll see that shadow that's baked in, and this doesn't really correspond to anything. I'm pretty sure that this is an error. So what we could do is clean it up. So I'm just going to zoom in here on it. And with the background selected and just the red channel selected, we can paint directly onto this layer. If you try and create a new layer and try and do the same thing, select the red channel and try and paint on it, switch over to my brush and try and paint, you're not actually going to get anything because Photoshop won't let you paint on just a single layer at a time if there's transparency baked into it. So we need to paint on something that already has some color into it. So I'm just going to paint right onto the background layer here. So let's go ahead and get rid of this layer one. And we'll say yes to delete that. And also so that I'm not painting kind of outside, I'm not making a mess of my file. What I really want to do here is actually make a quick selection using my parts mask. And so I'm going to select this first, switch over to my magic wand tool, and then just click inside of here to make a selection inside of that mask. Then we'll switch back over to the background layer, turn on just the red layer, and I can zoom in, and we'll switch over to the brush tool. And I'm going to make sure that I'm using white, and we'll just kind of patch that out. So just get a little brush over that, and that will remove that from the shading or the occlusion file of the red. And by selecting just that red channel, we're not making any other changes to the green or the blue channel. So I'll go ahead and make or deselect everything there. And now we can take a look at the blue channel. We'll go ahead and turn that one on, turn the red channel off. The blue channel describes metallic or metal. And so anything that is white here in the blue channel is going to be metallic in the game, and anything that's black is going to be kind of a painted surface. So we don't need to make any changes to this channel inside of our composite material, but I do need to make a change inside of the green channel. Now the green channel describes roughness. So anything that is white is going to be completely matte, and anything that is black will be completely glossy. And so you notice that most of the plane is real dark. It's not completely black, but it's real dark. And this means that it's going to be pretty glossy. Anything that's white is going to be matte. So we have a couple of different components that are going to be matte in the game. And here on the green channel is where you can see that Beachcraft B that's baked right into the backside of the tail here. So let's go ahead and zoom in and we'll patch this out. And for this, I'm going to make sure I'm selected over into my green channel. And then I'm going to use the clone stamp tool here. So I'll press Alt or Option on my keyboard. I'm actually working on a Mac, so I'll press Alt or Option here to make a selection of a portion of the tail, because I want to make sure that I'm picking up some of this texture here when I paint it down. And then we'll come up here and just paint out that B. Get rid of that. Oh, got a little extra there, so let's start over. Gonna paint this out here, and I'll make another selection. And we'll paint that one out. And then, let's see, got a little extra texture here, so let's knock that out. All right, and then we'll go ahead and move over here, and we'll do the same thing with this B. So let's grab a piece of the texture, and we'll just paint that out. All right, let's go ahead and zoom back out. And there is our patched up green channel. And there are a couple of different areas inside of here that maybe also need some patching. So for instance, like this little bit right down here, I'm not sure exactly what that corresponds to. There's another little bit, again, up this little stripy bit up here. So there's different things in here that you can go through and clean up if you really want to. Some of this stuff just adds a little bit of character to the model. I don't know exactly what that is, but you can patch that out as needed. So that is our finished composite. Let me go ahead and switch back over to the full color version. And so now you can see that the B is gone from here, from the green channel, and that extra bit of shading from the red channel, or the occlusion channel, is now gone from the tail. So I hope that helps you out and gives you a good idea of how to edit these composite material files for all of your flight simulator liveries.